Apparently, someone out there has recordings of Joe Biden that implicate him in his business dealings with Ukraine and Burisma. Let's go ahead and see what we've got from the Post Millennial and I believe Newsweek. This is absolutely bombshell stuff. I see people that are conservatives like DC Drano, Benny Johnson, and so many others talking about the fact that this is it. This is Biden going to be getting arrested and going to jail. And none of these people ever actually have any comeuppance for any of their actions of the nefarious nature that they intake. But let's go ahead and jump into this and see what we've got, because I believe it's realistically a bunch of coke from a bunch of the conservatives, but I also understand why they would be so fervent against this, because this is the big thing that they believe has been building up this entire time to come out. Because this is a major deal. It's absolutely huge. It's realistically historic, but nonetheless, who knows exactly how this is going to go, because, like I said, none of these people ever actually get their comeuppance when anything happens, because all they do is just kind of coast off into the sunset, and then they'll go work at like Lockheed Martin or Raytheon. But for someone like Joe Biden, he realistically needs to get carted off into an elderly home, because what's happening right now is effectively elder abuse. And if his wife actually loved him, I'd argue she wouldn't allow him to be puppeted around by the establishment to the degree that he is. But nonetheless, that's a conversation for a different day, because I don't feel like going into something as depressing as the fact of Joe Biden's mental decay. Alright, let's jump into this. Breaking from the Post Millennial. Burisma executive who allegedly paid Hunter and Joe Biden has 17 recordings of them as insurance policy, GOP senators reveal. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot. I wondered if this had happened initially when I had seen what had happened with Joe Biden and effectively Hunter Biden's laptop and the reveal of all the information and the pictures and the documents that got revealed through that. But the media didn't jump on that. In fact, they kind of squandered it and swept it under the rug so they didn't have to deal with it, so Joe Biden could have kind of skated into the presidency in 2020. I don't fully buy the narrative of the whole idea of the election being stolen. I know YouTube has recently changed their prerogative on the fact that you can now question the idea that the election was stolen, or the fact that it was tampered with or manipulated with in 2020, which I find that quite fascinating, because I wonder if what they're doing is they see the shifting tide and they believe that something like a right-wing victory or a conservative victory like Donald Trump or someone like DeSantis or whoever else would be running in the conservative foothold, which I can't imagine it being anyone else but those two. But what we'll see is I believe that they might be setting up the fact that if these people win, then you can question the election, which would be smart on a technicality front if they wanted to leverage it in their own favor, which we know the tech oligarchs love to do, as they consistently do by weeding through the narratives, and they could do by consistently drip feeding specific pieces of information that they want people to intake and completely withholding others, and effectively lying by omission by withholding those facts. Very much so, how we've seen this with so much of this. Alright, this article is written by Hannah Nightingale. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Speaking on the Senate floor on Monday, Senator Chuck Grassley, a Republican, revealed that a Burisma executive cited in the FBI 1023 from alleging a bribery scheme then with Vice President Joe Biden kept 17 audio recordings of his conversation as an insurance policy. Grassley stated that the FD 1023 form redacted a reference stating that Burisma executives possess 15 audio recordings of phone calls that took place between himself and Hunter Biden. And I will have everything linked in the description below, as I always will and always do. But we're going to go ahead and check this out later. We'll have a 1-minute clip that we'll go ahead and run through. I'm not going to watch this entire thing. It's 10 minutes. But if you would like to go ahead and listen to it, it'll be here for you. Chuck Grassley's like 89 years old. He's almost 90. I think he's 90 at the end of the year. And listening to him is realistically, from my perspective, the equivalent of watching paint dry. It's incredibly boring. It's incredibly slow. He could have gotten out all of these points in 3 minutes, but it took him 9. But that's just the nature of him being an elderly man. And the fact is, I don't understand why we have people that are almost dust in the upper echelons of government and the people that are running the American empire. It's fucking staggering. But let's go ahead. It says the document also states that Burisma executives possess 2 audio recordings of phone calls between himself and the then Vice President Joe Biden. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot. The 1023 also indicates that the then Vice President Joe Biden may have also been involved in Burisma employing Hunter Biden, Grassley says. Based on these facts known to Congress and the public, it's clear that the Justice Department and the FBI nearly have the same laser focus on the Biden family. Grassley added nothing but the special counsel Jack Smith has used a recording against for former President Trump. Getting a full and complete 1023 is critical for the American people and to know and understand the true nature of the document and to hold the Justice Department and the FBI accountable. It's important for serving the constitutional congressional oversight powers against an out-of-context executive branch, obviously drunk with political infection. Remember, Congress has received 1023s in the past and they've been made public. So asking for this 1023 to be turned over to the American people to be read is not an unusual thing. And realistically, there should be so many more things that are declassified when it comes to what's released to the American public. Let's start with the JFK files. Let's start with the 9/11 files. Let's start with the RFK files, because God knows we have RFK Jr. running for president now, and we absolutely need that information getting released so we can actually have clarification on the fact that a sitting Kennedy and someone who is attached to the name, and not just any small person who's attached to the name who's a third cousin twice removed. We're talking RFK's son. We're talking JFK's nephew. The person who believes that the CIA killed his father and his uncle, and much like his uncle believes that the most effective thing you can do with something like the CIA would be to scatter it into 1,000 pieces and blow it into the fucking wind. And realistically, that is something I would love to be seen brought to the Democratic Party landscape, because RFK Jr. is someone that can bring the mentality of the people of the Democratic voting base, who are people who will not vote Republican, they don't want to vote Republican, or people who are independent and don't believe in any of the stuff like pro-life or many of the other things that the Republicans push consistently, because maybe they're not a fan of guns or all of this other stuff, or maybe they're not a fan of how the Republicans have handled the war throughout things like 2000 to 2010 to 2015, and how they were handling this throughout all of the neocon era. But let's go ahead and jump into the rest of this article because we need to finish this up. It says, last week, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene revealed that two $5 million payments were made to the Biden family members. The 1023, she said, reveals that the Burisma hired Hunter Biden to the board to make the problems go away. That's why specifically she said Hunter Biden advised that they could raise money if they bought a U.S. company. He also said that he paid $5 million to one Biden and he paid $5 million to another Biden. And it was all a bribery to get Shokin fired and the end of the investigation into Burisma. So, something I want to touch on this, and this goes with the whole idea of the big guy getting paid off with Joe Biden. Marjorie Taylor Greene, because who knows if Marjorie Taylor Greene herself is getting paid off from any other political interests, because so many of these people are realistically just lobbyists for massive corporations, and that's all you should look at them as, is just massive pharmaceutical suits or massive suits for massive corporations. Just wearing their pins for Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and Boeing and BlackRock and Vanguard and State Street and all these other things like Chase and Wall Street. But anyways, so we have Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she's made so many wild comments in the past, but the thing that needs to be taken account for is that people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and John Fetterman and all these other wild, kooky characters that are getting appointed to the Senate and the congressional seats, the more the better. Because the further the Senate and Congress looks like Arkham Asylum, the more entertaining and insane it's going to be. And the insanity will completely degrade people's perspective on their value of how they see politics as a serious manner of achieving an end goal, because politics is not. Politics is just power games for the elites so that they can play resource games and effectively control and send young men who have been idealized to go die to their deaths 7,000 miles from borders that they would never go see otherwise. So, go ahead, jump into this real quick. It says, on Thursday, Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene held an emergency meeting even after the reading the FBI FT 1023 form that alleges a bribery scheme involving Joe Biden during his days as vice president, revealing the payments that were made to the Biden family by Burisma, the Ukrainian oil company in which Hunter Biden sat on the board of. Back in 2015-2016, Burisma was looking to buy a U.S.-based oil and gas company, and this came from being advised by Hunter Biden and his partners. Biden said Victor Shokin was corrupt. This was around the time of the meeting, which was when Joe Biden, as vice president, said the prosecutor Shokin was corrupt. What a hilarious statement of Joe Biden saying that someone is corrupt. But we'll go ahead and let Marjorie Taylor Greene go ahead and say some of her piece real quick, and then I'll just cut back.
Reading this form today shows the pure distinction. This information, this source that came forward, it's a paid informant by the FBI. This has nothing to do with Giuliani. This has nothing to do with the information that he brought forward in 2020. It's totally separate, and it's extremely credible because he's a paid informant. I made some notes after I left the skiff based on the information, and I'll share that with you guys right now. Basically, what was happening there is back in 2015, 2016, Burisma was looking to buy a U.S.-based oil and gas company. And this came from being advised by Hunter Biden and his partners.
The fact that it was someone who got paid to do this, who was a paid informant to drop this information off, and just so the FBI can go ahead and release it, so the special counsel can go ahead and deliver it and read it. And I would love to read the entire unredacted folder so we could actually get this to the public so they could understand what's going on with the nefarious nature of their president. But as we see, it says they hired Hunter on the board to make the problems go away. That's what they specifically said. Hunter advised that they could raise more money that they brought to the U.S. company. Green stated that the informant was trying to do the right thing and trying to advise Burisma that they shouldn't go this route and that they should instead hire an attorney to work out their problems that they were being investigated for, because instead of that, they were having their own legal problems. And that's why they were being investigated by the prosecutor Shokin. The informant was advising them, don't go this route. Why would you buy another U.S. company while you're under investigation? That's not a good idea. Obviously, that's a terrible idea, but nonetheless, greed is what drives these people, and they just wanted more money, and they could make more money out of a U.S. company. And we see here it says Chuck Grassley teases damning audio recordings of Joe Biden. So we'll go ahead and play this and let Chuck Grassley go ahead and spiel real quick. So let's let the old man go. Take it away, sir.
The 1023 produced to the House committees redacted reference that the foreign national who allegedly bribed Joe and Hunter Biden allegedly has audio recordings of his conversation with them. 17 such recordings. According to the 1023, the foreign national possesses 15 audio recordings of phone calls between him and Hunter Biden. According to the 1023, the foreign national possesses 2 audio recordings of phone calls between him and then Vice President Joe Biden. These recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case that he got into a tight spot. Special Counsel Jack Smith has used a recording against former President Trump. Well, what is U.S. Attorney Weiss doing with respect to these alleged Joe and Hunter Biden recordings that are apparently relevant to the high-stakes bribery scheme? The 1023...
Yeah, so we see, it says, like it said, Chuck Grassley teases damning audio recordings of Joe Biden, and this is the person who was officially the one who released this information and read it out to the world so they could tell them that he's the person who had it. This is the man who received the information. It says, Iowa Republican Senator Chuck Grassley alleges on the Senate floor on Monday that the foreign national with whom President Joe Biden is accused of striking a bribery deal has 17 audio recordings of his conversation, which we've gone over consistently over and over again. And I am so excited to see how the media spins with this, or if they don't defend Joe Biden at all and they just completely throw him under the bus because he served his usefulness in defeating Donald Trump in 2020, and they'll just get another skin suit puppet to go run in 2024 just like they always do. And who knows, maybe they'll have Gavin Newsom roll up and slide up and roll up his sleeves, step out of his Patrick Bateman American Psycho style role, and then maybe slide into the position of president. Who knows? We'll go ahead and see if we get another steward of the American Republic. It says, according to a report from NBC News, the FBI and a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney reviewed the allegations against the Biden family when they were first made in 2020. However, law enforcement officials officially claimed to be unsubstantiated. And the amount of times there are just unsubstantiated claims against someone like Donald Trump is absolutely astronomical, but nonetheless they run with them off the books all the time because they need something to perpetuate the news cycle and to consistently get you in that 10 minutes of hate that Orwell talked about in 1984. Because as long as we can get you in this mindset of perpetually going against the other, what we can do is gin you up against your opposition, and we can create your opposition and then dictate how you orient yourself towards them. And that's something that's very important to think about with how you look at how the media scales people towards each other, especially with the current racial divide that the media has been pushing for a long time now. And you really see see this with how they handled the coverage of the Black Lives Matter protests, that then some of them turned into riots, and it just turned into absolute chaos with how the left and the right sides of the media decided to cover this, because they didn't do any justice for anyone involved, because all they did was consistently push their own narrative so they could consistently divide people so that they could sell their own donor class. All right, Washington Examiner. It says Joe and Hunter Biden caught on 17 recordings. We know. We've covered it a couple times. A top Senate Republican revealed Monday that the FBI informant said that the Ukrainian oligarch involved in an alleged criminal bribery scheme with Joe and Hunter Biden has also claimed that his recordings with the president's son are effectively going to be damning to the entire family. And who knows what would actually be damning to the entire family. We've seen what happened with the release of the Ashley Biden diary, which is tragic in itself to read the contents of it, and you see the nature of what she talks about, the fact of she repressed memories about the showers that she believed she shared with her father and all the other horrible things that it talks about. But that's something I really don't want to talk about, and I'm not trying to get hit by YouTube for talking about something as so heinous as that, because we're talking about children at that point, and that's just, it's fucking vile. It says the Republican senator stated, and it's speaking about Chuck Grassley, obviously, these recordings were allegedly kept as a sort of insurance policy for the foreign national in case he got hit into a tight spot. And we've heard this from everyone from Marjorie Taylor Greene to Chuck Grassley throughout every single article, because they're all reporting on the nature of what he said. But the thing that no one's talking about is the fact that if this is the case, and they actually let this take Joe Biden down, then it means that he has officially served his purpose as operating as the steward of the American empire, and they are just going to move on to putting up another skin suit to take the role of the presidency so that they can try and swing another victory in 2024. They're going to push things like ballot harvesting, which I wonder if the Republicans are even truly on top of and understanding that this is the nature of something that they have to conquer, because this is a huge hill that, one, they will have to die on, and two, that they will first have to climb up and achieve the summit first to even understand the nature of the battle that they have to fucking fight. So that's all I really have to say on this. I'm going to leave it there. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Share it with someone if you enjoyed it. Go ahead and tell someone you love them. Peace.